I recently came across a complete set of the Penguin Modern Minis, books 1 to 50, in its mint green Eau de Nil packaging, and yeah, I just couldn't resist the opportunity to grab it and take it home with me. I still can't really believe that someone would receive that as a gift and then think, nah, I'll pass. Lunacy. Seems like lunacy to me, but anyway. I found it used but in perfect nick, and I just can't resist the opportunity to go through these 50 books with you today, although we're probably going to do it in 2 parts, and rank them. Now, I had read most of these before I found the box set, but there was about 10 or 12 that I hadn't read, so I gobbled them up, and I reread some of these minis that, I read a long time ago. Now, the aim of this video is to basically categorize these 50 books into 4 tiers: A, B, C, and D. I'm going to keep it really simple. I'm not going to give convoluted, wacky names to the tiers. I'm going to do it manually, not with a whole fandangled, online thing where you have to sign up and then they have your email for eternity. I have no idea what the sort of balance of those rankings is going to deliver to us in terms of percentages, but I think the idea is that if the overall weight of these rankings leans into B and up into A, then we can maybe conclude that it's worth buying this package of 50. If it's on the side of C and D, yeah, then I think we'd conclude that it's really not worth it. I also want to just review this package as a whole. Is it worth buying this? Now, I'll be honest that it looks very nice. It's not actually as big as you would think. If you have a look at it here, it's quite compact, and I think that they skimped a little bit on the packaging, to be honest, because as this being a box set, you should be able to slide the books out and in with ease, and to be honest, it's a little cramped, so you can't do it with one hand, and I think that is a bit of a negative point for me. But other than that, obviously it looks very nice, and it's an incredible stable of writers. Now, the Penguin Modern Classics writers are generally European and American and also world literary figures of the 20th century. That is the broad categorization of the epoch of these writers. So there's a lot of modernist stuff there. There is social critique. There is reflection on some of the major events of the 20th century. There is a mix of poetry. There is a mix of critical writings, but most of it is short stories. I hope you enjoy. Let me know if any of these that you've read yourself or plan to read. Let me know down below in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Without further ado, let's dive into it together. So here we go. First up, Martin Luther King Jr. We have the letter from Birmingham jail. This is a very powerful historical document, very influential, an influential figure, a very heroic figure, whose life was cut short. He was assassinated, everybody knows that, but I'm not sure how many people have read this, and I highly recommend it. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. is a magisterial orator, and even though he was a preacher, so he comes really from a sort of biblical, Christian worldview and perspective, the fact that I don't have the same religious views as him, but yet I still found this so compelling and so moving, I think speaks to the power of his rhetoric, fiery elucidation of the injustices of American life in the 20th century is unswerving and pioneering, really. And for that reason, it's a great way to kick off this series, and we're going to put it in category A. Number 2 is the beat poet Allen Ginsberg, and television was a baby crawling toward that death chamber. This is a selection of his poems that comes from his collected poems. There's quite a few big hits here, America, but obviously Howl, I think, for whatever reason, was not included, which is his masterpiece, really. Ginsberg's poems are indignant and combative, but at the same time groovy and soulful, with that beat meld of sort of social consciousness and derision of the political systems and of the kind of normative American blandness of the 20th century, but at the same time, like I said, this kind of groovy, soulful, free-spirited, sensual, freewheeling kind of life philosophy and of poetry. So it's good stuff, and we are going to put it into A. So we're off to a good start here. Next, we've got Daphne du Maurier, The Breakthrough. And this is one of those ones that could be sort of packaged as a novella. It's one long story, but to be honest, I was quite disappointed with this. It's got a sense of implausibility. It's a kind of speculative story about a mad scientist in a desolate corner of England, working on some new contraption to capture consciousness. And for me, the characters seemed very typecast and predictable and a bit thinly drawn. Yeah, there's a bit of a woeful thinness to the atmosphere, which is fitting in a way because it's set on these lonely marshes. But I just felt like there was too many loose threads that were not really drawn together with cohesion. So it was quite disappointing. I'm going to put this in the C category. And then number 4, we've got Dorothy Parker, The Custard Heart. This was really playful and rich, jocular, whimsical and voluptuous. These are stories of kind of lovelorn flappers in the New York of the sort of jazz age or post-jazz age, but drawn with suppleness and finesse. For me, it just falls short of A. I'm going to put it in B. Number 5 is like a mini anthology of Japanese short stories from early 20th century Japan. Nagai Kafu, Uno Koji, Aku Tagawa, Ryunosuke. These are translated by J. Rubin of Haruki Murakami fame. He's one of the main translators of Murakami's novels and short stories. Yeah, these stories were a bit of a letdown, to be honest. They were sort of about kind of slacker figures, smug and contrarian, disaffected, even perhaps sort of misanthropic figures who were sort of blundering through life, wasting their opportunities, and there was a real dismal feeling and a sense of bathos, and often left me quite deflated. I would like to read more of these writers to give them more of a chance, but for me, this was a bit of a letdown, left me a little cold. So yeah, I'm going to put that in C as well. Then we've got Anni Nin, The Veiled Woman, number 6. It's been quite a few years since I read her, but her prose is electric, vivid, silken, enticing, and sort of fervid, audacious, and intoxicating writing, really, really sparkling and charged. I just noted across some of these stories adjectives that end with O-U-S in this kind of soulful assonance across these stories. So we've got luxurious, odorous, dolorous, ravenous, vaporous, voluptuous occurs a few times, delicious, sumptuous, vigorous, and I think somehow we can read into that a sense of the voluptuous, rich patterning of these stories. It's an absolute A. Number 7 is Notes on Nationalism by George Orwell, one of my favorite writers. I've read these essays several times, vitalizing and sort of strengthening stuff. It's just classic Orwell doing what he does. I really like his distinction between nationalism and patriotism. I think it's as relevant as ever. Orwell says that patriotism is love of your country, your culture, the heritage of your land. Nothing wrong with that. But nationalism for Orwell is not only a love, not only a patriotic love of your country, but a desire that your country conquers others, that it's not the best to you, but that it is sort of objectively or economically or geopolitically the best, the strongest, the greatest. And I think that's a very interesting distinction, that we can be passionate about the places we live and the countries, the cultures we come from, but desiring to conquer and dominate is obviously terrible, toxic, and is a problem that the world is riddled with. That's an easy A for me. Gertrude Stein. Number 8, food. This is almost impenetrable. She has this phrase here, pain soup, somewhere in this, and for me that should be the book's real title, Pain Soup, Sadder Than Salad. In order to enjoy, and I love the modernists, right? I'm a huge advocate of modernism and of many of the modernists, but for me, there's got to be something that you get out of any kind of writing, and this is just a mishmash of words, and it feels like you have to chew. There's like machinations. Her prose feels like chewing, like machinations. In the piece titled "Eating," she says, "Is it so? Is 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 it so?" You know, this kind of almost chewing. Eating, he heat, eating, he heat, it eating, he heat, it eating, he heat, eating. It's you know, you could probably do elaborate readings of this stuff, but as she says, there is no delight and no mathematics, and I think that is, for me, an absolute D. Right, number 9 is Stanislaw Lem, the Three Electronites. Now, I knew the figure of Stanislaw Lem from Solaris, right, his novella that was immortalized in the film by Tchaikovsky of the same title, Solaris. Great film. But I was quite unfamiliar with Lem, to be honest. And I'm not massively into science fiction. Tell me if I should be. Tell me where I should start with science fiction. Or maybe I have just made my start. Because these stories are phenomenal. The White Death in particular, King Globerez and the Sages. Mesmerizing, crystalline, but with whimsical and this sort of iridescent spectral intergalactic skullduggery. It's just sublime, scintillating, gorgeous, and otherworldly storytelling of the highest order, and for that reason it is an absolute A. Number 10 is the Irish poet Patrick Kavanagh, and we've got The Great Hunger, which is the eponymous long poem at the center of this selection of his works. I have Irish roots, so I always feel some kind of kinship with Irish writing. Some of my favorite writers are Irish writers. And Patrick Kavanagh is very earthy and pastoral and parochial at times, laconic at times, elliptical. And there are sublime moments within some of these poems, excellent lines that really zing and sting and burst upon your inner vision. But for me, there's also something morbid and sullen about quite a lot of it, especially The Great Hunger, this long, dragging narrative poem about this figure who just trudges through life and is sort of yearning for something beyond the bounds of his, farm life, and it's quite bleak and sodden, and I just felt a little underwhelmed by quite a lot of this. So for me, it's going to be a C. Number 11 is Danilo Kiss, The Legend of the Sleepers. Now, to be honest, I don't know that much about Danilo Kiss. I might even be mispronouncing his name or her name. I really don't know much about this writer. This is weird, kind of biblical, apocryphal sort of retellings of mythological and biblical figures. I don't know, this is something that I feel like I probably need to reread. It went over my head a little bit. It left me pretty high and dry. I maybe need to give it another chance because I read it a few years ago and I just felt a bit discombobulated. So do let me know if I should give this another chance and what I possibly missed on the first time around, but I'm gonna have to put it in D because I just was not feeling it. 12 is Ralph Ellison, The Black Ball. There are a handful of stories here of the American writer Ralph Ellison. It's just good, solid craft, good prose writing, riveting storytelling, a real sense of force, and it didn't blow me away, but I thought it was, sort of sumptuously and expertly done, and for me it's a solid B. Number 13 is JeanRee, Till September, Petronella. There's 4 stories in here dealing quite often with hybridity of identity and a sense of the disconsolate disappointments of life. It's not uplifting, positive storytelling, but it doesn't need to be. Many of you probably know JeanRee from Why I Took Associates, a novel that I read a long time ago and I definitely need to return to. But this was a good sort of way to whet my appetite to get me back into JeanRee because it's very, very good storytelling. There is a sense of sort of menacing undercurrents, violence, and it's just, yeah, psychologically insightful. So very, very good. And for me, it's an A. Okay, we are at number 14. I can't get it out. If anyone was thinking that I might be like a industry plug for Penguin, I'll be honest and say that I find the packaging far from ideal. And this is even with quite a lot of these books already, you know, taken out to make this process smoother. Okay. Franz Kafka Investigations of a Dog. I love Kafka. He's a key writer for me. Pretty much everything that he has written has left its indelible mark upon me. But this, for me, is hands down the worst thing he wrote. I think he'd probably get rid of it if he could. That's a strong claim. But it's this 50-page screed about this kind of tongue-in-cheek, satirical parody of his contemporary sort of social discourse. So it's dated. I don't think there's much humor in it from our standpoint. It's quite of its time. I just couldn't bring myself to reread this. So for me, it's a definite D. Then we have number 15, Clarice Lispector, Daydream and Drunkenness. I've read these stories twice through, and especially the second time, I was really impressed. She does what she does very, very well. They're quite unhinged, disdainful characters, tremulous, and I feel like every story is sort of on the verge of rapture and rupture, but there is a sense of compression, of a sort of dizzy containment of life that is always yearning to burst through, and gives it this sort of febrile, malarial edge. Very introspective and very, very convincingly written, and for me it's an easy A. Number 16 is Ryszard Kapuscinski, an advertisement for Toothpaste, Polish travel writer of wide renown. We've talked about him on the channel at least once, I think. And these are his reflections on the impact of globalization and of capitalism on former Soviet bloc countries, this sort of belated inrush of products, of choices, of toothpaste, of, you know, designer sneakers, of all of these things, and the strange, paradoxical and ironic sort of warping effect that these bright and shiny consumer products have on parts of the world, parts of Eastern Europe that were sort of left behind economically and socially. And yeah, it's a strange and thought-provoking reflection on the sort of adverse effects of globalization. He's a very good writer. It's just that it's not a subject per se. The opening up of Eastern Europe into sort of global market is not something that particularly, tantalizes me. So it's good, solid stuff. I'm going to give it a B. Alrighty, Albert Camus, Create Dangerously. These essays were translated by Justin O'Brien. All three of these are speeches. I read this a few years ago. I've reread some of it. I really like Camus, and this is his call to arms to appreciate beauty and the aesthetic and sensual dimension of life, and to not be disaffected and disillusioned by the horrors of history, but to keep the memory of summer alive within you, to paraphrase an image that he articulated. Camus is always good. I'm going to give this a B because I actually really like his fiction more than his essays a lot of the time. So I'm going to give this a B. Number 18, John Steinbeck, The Vigilante. Story set in Salinas Valley, which is where he was born and raised. Steinbeck, he's just a master storyteller and prose stylist. I really, really love his descriptive prowess, his emotive finesse and sensitiveness, his touching sort of ability to capture the strange electric charge between strangers encountering one another in this quite wide horizoned and sort of uninviting world of the American West. And yeah, it's just good stuff. I have to give this an A. I really, really love almost everything that I've read of Steinbeck. Okay, number 19, we've got Fernando Pessoa, I Have More Souls Than One. Now, Pessoa was, this great Portuguese poet who wrote in personas, published books and whole, ranges of work in these personas, and that's what they've done here, is divided these poems up into Pessoa as Alberto Cairo, Pessoa Pessoa as Ricardo Reis, Pessoa as Alvaro de Campos, and Pessoa as Pessoa. I really, really like Pessoa as Alberto Cairo, which opens this little collection. Imagistic and resonant, but some of the others felt a bit overblown and gimmicky at times. That's probably a bit of a hot take. Sorry if you're a massive Pessoa fan. I am too. I really, like I said, like him as Alberto Cairo, but the others left me pretty disappointed even, or certainly unmoved. So I'm going to give that a C. Number 20, The Missing Girl by Shirley Jackson, obviously an American master of horror writing. Yeah, I read this a long time ago, to be honest. I should really reread this. But just to take, for example, Journey with a Lady is one of these stories about this boy that goes on this train ride to go and stay with his grandfather and meets a runaway, a fugitive criminal. And there's just this kind of layer of dread, this anxiety of something bad about to happen, simmering beneath the surface of her sentences. And yeah, I just need to come back to this. But the fact that it doesn't stick out so strongly in my mind means that I'm going to give it a reluctant C. Tell me if I'm wrong about that one. I think there's some big Shirley Jackson fans. Then we've got another little sort of mini anthology here of Russian short stories from 20th century Russian writing, exiled writers. And yeah, it's good stuff. It's really good stuff. I particularly love the story Kunak by Galina Kuznetsova. These are translated by Brian Karetnik. Kunak is a mesmerizing, devastating, one of the best short stories I've read in a long time. Profound image of the fellow suffering of beings, human or animal, the desperation of war and abyssal fear and desperation to escape, and the consequences of that. It's extraordinarily done. It's pained and glowing with jolts of compassion and recognition. Very good stuff. That's an A. The last four, we've got Italo Calvino, The Distance of the Moon. Amazing, weird, cosmic exuberance, effervescence, and brilliant imaginings. Italo Calvino is a genius. He's so inventive and intergalactic in his imagination, and for me it's an easy A. 23, Audre Lorde, The Master's Tools will never dismantle the Master's House. This is a selection of 4 essays, a very combative and brave political voice and poet, and these are essays about the power of poetry to invoke or to set in motion political change. It's persuasive, it's admirable, and it is invigorating. And I admire what she does here, but it doesn't send me running to my notebook to write some poems. So I'm going to give it a solid B. We've got 2 left. We've got Leonora Carrington, The Skeleton's Holiday. This is a selection of surrealist sort of vignettes and strange, weird and wild stories, if you can even call them that, experimental vignettes with a lot of non sequitur and fetid imagination. There's sort of magic lanterns in a way, hallucinatory and animated, and a real cosmic will, to borrow a term from her book. She was very collaborative, so she even worked with some major names of modern art, such as Marcel Duchamp, Max Ernst, among others. And yeah, it's weird and wonderful, and I'm going to put it in the A category. And then the last one of the first 25, we're going to stop here, and we're going to do a part 2 of the second 25. So to end off this one, we've got William S. Burrows, The Finger. So we're ending off with another beat writer, Burrows. Now, I was pretty apprehensive going into reading this selection because I have read a bit of, what was it? I think of his book Junkie, or another one of his novels, Naked Lunch maybe, and I was mortally disturbed by the content of that. So I was, like I said, kind of a bit hesitant going into this, but it's so expertly written, and I think there's a weird comparison you could make. hear me out, okay? Between William S. Burrows, the junkie beat madcap writer, and Jane Austen, hear me out, okay? I'm going for it here at the end of this video. But Jane Austen had a very narrow range of subject matter, of content. She wrote about, women's experience in the upper middle classes, but she did it with such mastery and, an apotheosis of writing on her subject. And I feel like Burrows is the same. He's writing about beats and dropouts and sort of runaways and misfits, but he does it so brilliantly, and so that's just a very unlikely comparison that I wanted to make. But for me, it's an A, and we're gonna stop there. But let's just, to wrap up, let's just look how we're doing here with, A category, clearly pretty solid. We've got a bit of B, we've got a little bit of C, and 3 books in the D category. So we're looking pretty good for an overall recommendation here, but it's not done yet. We're gonna collate, this full set of 50 into these 4 categories, and then at the end of that part 2, we will be able to say that is it worth buying this box set or not. So thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you thought of this, what you think of these. If you would like to see more of my content, please say hi down below. I really appreciate it. It doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you so much for all of you that do that. And yeah, thanks for watching. Keep cool, and see you all next time.